knight on the white swan riding in to save the day. So when he's going through his normal rookie pains for the next 4 weeks, the fan base is going to be looking at themselves going, why did we decide to do this while we were 7-5? Why did we?
Yeah, you're right. Now it's expected that he's going to lead them to the playoffs.
Yes,
he's the change. He's the improvement.
Expectations.
And that's not fair. That's not fair to place on the shoulders of a rookie quarterback who completed his first NFL pass yesterday.
You've seen coming from a guy that is critical of Manziel. In me, I don't necessarily like him being the Browns' choice, but it's not fair to him, even if I loved the guy, because if he does anything less than win, the Browns fan base is going to turn on him quicker than a hiccup. I'm telling you now.
Well, I'm not arguing, and people don't misunderstand. Johnny Manziel has a better skill set than Brian Hoyer. You know, we've talked enough. You know I believe that.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. So does Blake Bortles. So does Teddy Bridgewater. So does Derek Carr. Rookie quarterbacks are going to struggle in the National Football League. There's a learning curve. It's tremendously steep. There's an occasional, the once-in-a-generation types like Andrew Luck will hit the ground running at least. But even if you look at a kid like that, he had plenty of growing pains in his rookie season. And he continues, by the way, to have growing pains. Still probably throws too many interceptions for Chuck Pagano's liking. But even if you look at a prospect at that level, that elite level, by no means is Johnny Manziel anywhere near that level, you have the hiccups. And to put him in this situation is incredibly unfair to him. Forget about Brian Hoyer. It's obviously unfair for Brian Hoyer, who, again, you know, for all the warts and all the criticism he gets, 10-5 as the Brown starter. You know, count up the one-loss record before, the 5 years before he took that job.
Well, you know what,
what was it?
With what you just said, because I had that discussion with some fans over the weekend. Some people counter that to me, because I make that same argument that you did. Some people counter that to me. They go, well, Jerry, just because everybody before him was terrible, that doesn't make him any better. That just means that he's not as terrible. I said, okay, I'll give you that. But I want to ask you, John, from nationally, because you see this stuff all the time, and I want to take the Cleveland color out of it. And I'm curious, because I don't follow every quarterback change. I haven't watched every situation like this where you got something. Was Hoyer's leash dramatically shorter, significant, or just slightly shorter, or was it exactly the same as what would have been expected somewhere else in a different situation? I'm looking for you to tell me, outside of Cleveland, outside of the way we may be used to seeing things, do you realistically feel that his leash was shorter than anybody else would have got, or was it longer? Did he get more time, or is just a 3 or 4 game bad window just what happens in the NFL and most teams don't make decisions based off of a couple of weeks?
It's dramatically shorter. I wouldn't even call it a leash. I would call it a choke collar if they were going to, if they are going to bench him. You know, we'll see. He could always, backtrack and go back to
backtrack. Do you think he does? Because I said if anything,
I don't. No, I think he's going to be starting next week. Dramatically, teams don't bench starting quarterbacks who have the team at 7-5 and in the playoff race. That's not when you bench a quarterback. Especially on top of that, especially when you have been nowhere near the playoffs in the recent past. Now, there could be some talk if you were, say, 13-3 the year before, and you're off to a 7-5 start, and that's painted as disappointing.
Like a San Francisco
situation. Especially amongst veteran quarterbacks who are, getting up there in age, 38, 39 years old. You could see that type of scenario. But for a team that has been as down as long as Cleveland and is in the playoff hunt for the first time in a number of years, it's unheard of.
And I'll tell you what, see, Vashon in the chat room, he goes a different direction. He brings up the 49ers, says they benched Alex Smith when he was playing the best football of his career. I personally thought that was a mistake, and I think that as things play themselves out, I don't know that you'd say it was a mistake, but it's clear that Colin Kaepernick may not be all that many people thought he was at that point in time. So I didn't think that was the best decision either.
It was a very bold move by Jim Harbaugh. It was
bold, yes.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're talking about a veteran quarterback who had played for a number of years for San Francisco, a team that at that particular time had tremendous Super Bowl aspirations. Not a team that was going from nowhere. 4-12, and by the way, Jim Harbaugh got a lot of criticism for that, and it was a tremendously bold decision. Ended up working out in the short term, obviously making the NFC Championship game again for the second straight year. They went on to make it for a third straight year. But still, he gets questioned about that today because there are people who believe if Alex Smith stayed there, he could have game managed that team to a title. We'll never know. But there was a situation where a very good team benched a veteran quarterback with limitations. That's more logical, even though it's rare, but it's more logical than a team that hasn't been in the playoff hunt for years and is in the playoff hunt and makes a change this dramatically. And again, he could backtrack, and I'll take it all back, but if all indications are Johnny Manziel's going to start. And by the way, for the Manziel fans who think I'm insulting him, I'm not insulting him. I think it's unfair to him also to put him in this environment. I think it's incredibly unfair.
That's part
because
of the point
you're
that I
setting
keep
him up
stressing.
to fail.
I keep saying that. I'm like, I know you guys know that I'm not a Manziel guy, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that he's expected to do nothing but come in and win these games. People are thinking that he is coming in to save the day, and that is an incredibly bad situation that they put him in. Funny the way you equated that to a winning team, because I was joking earlier in the show, and I said, because the Browns with their long legacy of success, now all of a sudden we're tired of sitting on this, only 7-win level that we're at now because we're so used to better. But yesterday, seriously, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I made a very similar equivalent. I said, to be honest with you, I thought the Browns would reach this point next year. Once they were actually winning. Now, obviously, I initially thought it could be by the bye week that they would make the change. If those first 3 weeks went the way that we thought that they did, that would have changed everything. Once we got to this point, I said, to be honest, I could see at this point next year, following up what you said, if you win 7, 8, 9 games this year with Hoyer, okay, you come back next year with a short-term deal, 1 or 2 year deal with him. If you're still 6, 7 wins come the beginning of December with Hoyer again, then maybe you go, okay, time to start seeing what we got here in the kid, and let's give him the last. But I really thought that was kind of a year ahead of when I thought the Browns would make the move that they made this week.
Well, you and I have differed on that, as you know. I firmly believe that Johnny Manziel would have been starting week 1 if he did what he needed to do in the off season. I felt that way. We've talked enough. I firmly believe that. I think only him and his, whatever you want to call it, immaturity, lack of work ethic, whatever you want to label it as, he opened the door for Brian Hoyer. I think Cleveland had every intention of him winning the job in the preseason and moving forward from there. And I didn't, in the long term, I don't think they expected to compete this year for a playoff berth.
Agree.
That's just the nature of the NFL and rookie quarterback. Take a look at it. To me, I think the best rookie quarterback has been Teddy Bridgewater in Minnesota, who I think is 4-4 as a starter. They're not in the playoff hunt. They can afford to do some things. I think, as I said before the season started, I think he was the most NFL-ready quarterback. I just think he has an innate poise about him. And you see, he's done well. He doesn't turn the ball over, but he struggled. Hiccups at times, like all young quarterbacks. Blake Bortles probably has the best skill set. You've seen how badly he struggled. Came back with a 21-point comeback. So you see the signs but you also see all the hiccups in between. The fact that you do this in the middle of the playoff hunt, again, I don't know how you spin that. I don't know how you throw a kid in that, barring an injury, as I said. If Hoyer got injured, then you have to throw him in there. It's understandable. It's part of the aspect. It's part of the game, and we all know teams have to fight through injuries, and that's a totally different scenario. Because win, lose, or draw in that type of scenario, he doesn't have this added pressure put upon him. Now, as you mentioned, he's the savior.
Yep.
What you signaled by that move yesterday was you think you're a playoff team, and you think Brian Hoyer isn't capable of getting you to that level, but Johnny Manziel is. That's what you sent the message. Now, I'm not criticizing Mike. He's got to believe in his team. He's got to believe in himself. And maybe he truly behind the scenes believes that. People tend to skew things and obviously you want success for your team and your organization, but you have to look at things logically if you're a head coach in the National Football League. And this is just an illogical move. And I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, we go back to the Kaepernick-Smith thing again. Kaepernick had sat an entire year, year and a half. It wasn't his rookie season.
And that's where I was at. I was saying next year, let him be a year and a half in, and then you're having a different conversation,
Yes, and also remember, again, at the beginning of that change, Colin Kaepernick was played. There would have been no change if Alex Smith didn't suffer a concussion. It was an injury that enabled Jim Harbaugh, forced Jim Harbaugh to put Colin Kaepernick in the game. Only then, when he played well, when he got the opportunity due to injury, then Harbaugh said, you know what, he's playing too well, I don't want to take him out. That's entirely different. Brian Hoyer did not get injured. He is placing him in the game as the savior for this organization. I think that's incredibly, and by the way, for a guy who, let's be honest, has shown a stunning lack of maturity, is that really the position you want to put him in?
A week ago today, every story about Johnny Manziel was about getting a fight in a lobby in a hotel last weekend, and now his buddy on Thursday or Friday gets pulled over in Johnny's car doing a DUI, and that's all they're talking about last week, and now he's the savior. And you're listening to the Sports Fix, J-Rock, John McMullen talking Browns, and you mentioned something else there, not just the position that the Browns put him in theoretically in the minds of the fans out there, but how about the actual physical position, John? Because I wanted to ask you about this. You're not only putting him out there, but depending on the injury to Nick McDonald here, he came out yesterday. He was replaced by the next man up on the offensive line, which is now Ryan Seymour, who has been on practice squads for a while. I don't even know how much actual NFL game time he has. We know Nick McDonald only had.
And by the way, that poor guy, he did not hold up pretty well against Marcel Darius.
No, I mean, look at that. I mean, so now you're down even more. So you've got even more injury issues. And I wanted to ask you this from the outside perspective too, Josh Gordon, for all the talk about, the talent level, the other side of it, we're starting to see here again, maybe some people realizing this now, but he's hurting you as much as he helps you with the catches with his, whether it's, I don't know if you want to use the term laziness, in educated to the offense, or what you would have thought with 10 weeks to do nothing but study the offense, you would have thought he may have been more prepared. But I've had some people insinuate to me, and I have my own suspicions that, Josh Gordon had his own preference on who the quarterback that was better fit for the Browns was, and he was playing accordingly the last couple of weeks, but half routes, broken off routes, wrong routes, not going after.
Well, I don't want to go that far. I mean,
right,
he had cars to sell, but, yes, he wasn't it wasn't all football all the time. But, like, I mean, there are guys who, there are superstar receivers in this league that don't always run the best routes at times. And I don't want to say he came in, trying